Hi everyone, we are very excited to show you that we are going to develop in the next few lessons. So in this app you will be learning about how to break a large screen into smaller UI parts. You call it as multi-pane layouts. You'll be learning about creating fragments, adding a fragment to activity using XML. Then you'll be learning fragment event handling, adding a fragment to activity at runtime, and replacing one fragment with the other. So when you run, you will see it's one app you are developing, but when it runs on a smaller device with a smaller screen, it loads only one fragment first. Then you have to click the button to load the other one because it's a smaller screen. But the same app, when you run on a larger device, you will learn how you can display multi-panes so that you don't have to click the button like you click on the a smaller device. Here it just displays both of them at once. So it's very important for you to know how to do this using just one code base and how to develop apps so that it can utilize multi-panes on let's say larger screens. But it's very important that you look at till the end of the lesson and then the next couple of lectures in this series until we complete this app, right? We are very excited to show you how to develop this app. Okay, let's do it now. Hi everyone, welcome to the lesson Android Fragments Part 2. Create a fragment. We'll be using these tools and these docs for referencing. You need to make sure you look at the previous lesson before you start this lesson. You can find the link in the description. Make sure to do it before this. You will be learning here about creating a fragment class and adding a fragment to an activity using XML. As usual, we'll be doing practical demonstrations. So let's go and do the practical now. So let's create a new project, start a new project, and then make sure it's phones and tablets and empty activity. Click next. So give a name and a location and click finish. Let's click the finish button. So it created the project, and as usual the Gradle script will be running to do the initial build scripting. And then as usual I got the main activity file, then I got the resources, layout, I got one activity. Let's move forward from here now. In the developer docs under the creating a fragment section, okay, so it's modular, that's clear for us, and it says extending from the fragment. So what is fragment? Fragment is API class, so the fragment class. So it comes from androidx.fragment.app.fragment, right? Okay, it's a class, and that's where fragments are inheriting from. Let's see what the other important points here. Okay, then creating a fragment class. So you have to extend from the fragment class. And then as usual, like in a activity, you have to override the lifecycle methods. One difference when creating a fragment that you must override on create view callback, because you did not do it when you create activity. You did not override the on create view, but for a fragment you have to override the on create view callback method. So this is the only callback you need in order to get the fragment running. So at least this one you have to override, and at minimum there are two more, altogether three, for you to make something really meaningful. But at minimum, just overriding on create view will do you the starting part for you to run a simple app. So in this example, there's an article fragment extending from fragment, right? Okay, let's create article fragment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to the project. Let's say let's right click on the project, new. Let's say this time it's not an activity, this time I want a fragment, and let's say I want a blank fragment. Let's click on the blank fragment, and let's give that name over here, article fragment. Make sure the language is Java. So now it created a fragment. So if you look at article fragment, it extends from fragment. It comes from androidx.fragment.app. So the article fragment extends from fragment, and it auto generates some code, right? It auto generates this code, what I'm going to do is, okay, you don't do this always, but because I'm following that developer docs, I'm going to delete this auto generated code. But keep in mind, you don't do it like this always, right? You can reuse that, or you can use that auto generated code. But for me, for now, I deleted it because I'm going to use this code, the onCreateView method. I had the onCreateView method in that deleted code, but I deleted it because I'm going to put this back. Okay, so I got the onCreateView in the fragment, right, with the default parameters, and this is the inflating part, which means this is where the user interface for the fragment will get created. So it refers to, these are standard uh, methods, in this is standard parameter, you call inflate, so you don't change any of this. So then you need the layout file for the fragment. It's known as article view. So add a fragment to an activity, right? So okay, let's look into now. So what this is about, let's see. So what this means is it's inflating the XML file for the fragment. Now if you look at the fragment I created now, which is article fragment, it already has its XML file generated called fragment underscore article. Can you see it over here, right? So what I will do is I will refer that generated fragment XML file. So I will delete this and say dot fragment article, because for the article fragment it generated this fragment article. So now this is how you create a simple fragment, and now whatever you want to display in this fragment, you can go and put it to the fragment article.xml. So it has a default layout of a frame layout. So this is the fragment XML. So I will go to the design of it. This is the fragment. Click on the blueprint. What I will do is I'm just going to design this fragment. So what I'm going to do is simply I will say right click. I will say convert it into a constraint layout. This is the fragment XML. So convert it into a constraint so that I can design it. Right, it's asking whether it's okay. I will say yes, and it got existing text view. I will delete it in the fragment. What I will do is I will just put a text view here very quickly. Then I will put a button here, let's say 2 buttons, and let me design the user interface for that. So I just put a simple text, then I created a string. In the strings XML I created a key value called article fragment text1, and then what I did was went to the in the property palette for the text property, I referred to that, and then let's put click on the text view, search for let's say the font, say the text size, right? Let's say okay, just couple of things. Text color, and let's look at the design so you can see it over here. And then okay, so this is, let's also select this, let's put background, a background color, okay, some background color. Okay, so I designed that user interface. So this is the user interface of the fragment and we are referring it from the fragment inside the onCreate view, and it's referring to the fragment. So this is how you create the user interface of the fragment, right? Okay. And then next thing is you have to add the fragment into the activity using XML. So on the activity XML file, right, fragment activity XML, fragments XML, activities XML, you declare the fragments, right? You declare the fragments. Also, you can see here when I come to the activity XML file, you can see it has a linear layout and it has two fragments. The one I declared, one is the one I created is the article fragment. Also, it has a headlines fragment. So I will also now create a headlines fragment. So I will go to the project like earlier, right click, new fragment, let's say a blank fragment, let's say headlines fragment, let's say finish. Then once again it has a lot of auto generated code, right? I will just delete it, right? And then I will just, because I created the article fragment, I will just copy the same on create view back to the headlines fragment. But then the layout should be for the headlines fragment, it created a fragment underscore headline dot xml. So it should be fragment underscore headlines. Then fragment underscore headlines XML is this. So if I go to the blueprint, as usual, let's say like earlier, right click, like I did earlier, right click and say convert frame layout to constraint, because at the moment its layout is a frame layout, but I prefer to design using constraint layout. So I'll right click, create it to a constraint layout, and then existing component I will delete from here. And then let's design the let's design this fragment. Let's give a text size, then let's give a text color, okay, let's click the design. You can see it looks all good. Then let's just put the buttons. So let's design the buttons. Let's put the button text in strings.xml. Let's add. Let's go to the headlines. Let's click on the buttons. Let's click on the text. Let's delete it. Let's select headlines button one text, then the other one. Let's click on the fragment and let's search for the background. Let's put a background color. Let's click on the design. Okay, so I got the headlines fragment ready now. So earlier I had the article fragment, which is this. Now I got the headline fragment. So I got two fragments ready, right? Awesome. And then in the activities XML file, okay, so let's So let's copy this layout. Let's go to the activities XML file, right? So now if I go to the main activity, it has a main activity. The main activity, so this is the activity and the other two are fragments. As you see, the other two are fragments. So the main activity has a activity main XML, which is this one. So in the activity main XML, I'm going to, okay, if you go to the design, you have to come to the code. I'm going to delete this, but make sure you keep that first line, and then you paste this. And so now what you are telling is, you are telling that you have two fragments. So then you have to give the class file name for the fragment. So the package name com dot, you see the package name here, it's com dot example dot example1 dot, let's say first of all the headlines fragment, right? And then you got the articles fragment, right? Awesome. So that is the uh, activities X layout XML file. So then if you go down, so the main activity will refer to that, right? It will refer. So it here it says news articles, right? News articles XML, news article. So if you want to go by this example, well, it's the main activity is referring to the news articles XML. That means the main activity, instead of activity main, it has given the name as news article. It's okay, you can use this existing one, but if you want to call it by the same name, what I can do is just copy this, and just this main XML, I can just this main XML, I can just right click and say refactor and rename it as, say, news articles dot xml refactor. So if you now it change it as news articles, and if you look at the main activity, it's also now referring to news articles. So not a big thing, right? Okay, awesome, right? So you got the news articles. Okay, now let's run this, right? So with this we will run. So let's click the run button. Okay, I'm going to select the pixel excel, and let's click the run button and see what's going to happen. So when I click the run button, it will take a little while to compile. Now as you can see, I can see the two fragments. I can see the headline fragment in yellow color and the article fragment. Let's change this into landscape mode, right? Left rotate and see what's happening. So I can see the headlines fragment still and the article fragment. So this is the idea of fragments, right? So the screen can be divided, right? But still, when I have a smaller screen, uh, the use of fragments is not for smaller screens. The use of fragments is for the larger screens. So let's run this on a tablet, right? So let's select a tablet emulator, and let's run this on a tablet, right? So now I'm running it on a larger screen, on a larger tablet. So this is a tablet. Now you can see that on a tablet it looks nice, right? So that's what at the beginning of this lecture it said, fragments are mainly to support larger screens, right? So now this is on landscape mode. Let's put it back to the portrait mode, right? Put it back. So even the portrait mode, even it looks okay. Now if you are trying this, make sure that to drag this and make sure that the rotation is enabled, because if you don't enable it, like, so you have to click here and enable it, otherwise this rotation will not happen, right? So otherwise even if you rotate, it won't work well. Now when I rotate it, it gets rotated and it works because I have enabled. So as you can see now, the main purpose of fragments is to modularize larger screens. It doesn't look good on smaller screens, right? So now I hope you understand the purpose. So if you got a larger screen, you can display the two fragments side by side. But on a smaller screen, there's a technique where what you do is you first display only the headline fragment on a smaller screen, right? But I haven't done it here. I will do it in the next example. So in the next example, I will show you how I do it. So first I should display only the yellow fragment, and when I click on the button, let's say I haven't programmed the buttons, but when I click on the first button, it should go to the green color or the article fragment, and I should be able to come back to the headline and click and go back. So but uh, in a larger screen, when I click on a button, it should load the relevant article fragment in the right hand side. The second article, it should load the second one. This should change. So the article fragment should change based on what I click. So those things we will be doing in the next example, right? How to handle the button clicks and how to do this, how to balance this. So how do I because I have to balance this, because in a smaller screen, no point of having it. Even if I put it back to this, it doesn't look good, right? So on a smaller screen, you don't want the two fragments to be seen at the same time, right? So those things we'll handle in the next, we'll be handling in the next lecture, right? Awesome, right? But you got a basic idea of what are fragments, right? So let's also one more thing. If you look here, it clearly said in this article, in this developer docs, it clearly said here's an example of the layout file that adds two fragments. When the device screen is considered large, see, it clearly said that this layout file should be applicable only if the device screen is considered to be large, specified by the large qualifier in the directory name. So this news articles.xml, which means this one, the news articles.xml, this one should be applicable only for larger screens. So I have to put the large qualifier, right? Let's see how to do it now, right? That part we will do it here. So it should not go to the normal layout. At the moment, I have it in my normal layout. Can you see here? Look at my left hand side, normal. But it has to go to layout large, not to normal layout. So I will show you what I mean now, right? I will show you, right? So what I will do is for me to do that, right? For me to make it layout large, what I will do is I will go to the layout file, which is news articles, this one, right? And I will go to the design, right, of that layout article. So if this is the code, this is the design. When I go to the design, I can do that, right? Now I can say, okay, I want this to be appeared only on large screens. How do I do it, right? So let me show it to you now. So how you do it is you go to the design and you click this orientation for preview, right? So you click this, you click the down arrow here, right? And you will say create other, right? Not just portrait and landscape, just create other. When you say create other, right, you can select from this size. Then click this button, and now you can select, let's say you want large. So see, then it becomes layout large, the directory name, layout large. So now you will click OK. So when you click OK, what happened was, now you have two news articles XML files. One is for the normal screens, and look at my mouse in the left hand side. Other one is for the large screens. So look at this couple of times what I did. And why did it say it should go into a directory name large? I will show that also to you. When you do this, what happens is this. So if I go to resources, if I right click on resources, and if I say show in Explorer over here, it will take me to the Windows Explorer. So inside this, I will show you now. In resources, see, I have layout and I have layout large. This layout large directory got created just now because of what I did. So that is what this article developer doc says. This has to go into a directory with the qualifier large. So now there's a directory layout qualifier with large. So inside normal layout, I will have the standard ones, the fragment article, headline, fragment headline, and news article. But if I go to the layout large, in that I have only the news article because I applied it only for news article. So this news article is the one I want to change from compared to smaller screens and compared to larger screen. So that's what it talks here. Now what I can do is I can see this is the large one. So for the large one, I don't mind having two fragments. But let's say for the normal ones, right, I double click on that, right? For the normal one, let's say I want to show only one fragment. I'm just giving you an example, right? So in the normal one, I just want to show only the first, I want to show only the headlines fragment. So I deleted the second fragment. So this is the normal XML. This is the large XML, right? Qualifier large. So now if I run this, right, you will see, okay, I'm running it on the tablet. So on the tablet, it will display the large layout large. In the layout large, it has two fragments. But if I run this on a smaller device, right? So let's run this on a smaller device. When I run it, see, now it shows only one fragment. Why is it? Because in the standard XML, it has only one fragment. So now it's one app. The same app, when you run on a smaller device, because it's small screen size, it shows only one fragment. But the same app, when you run it on a larger device, tablet, it shows two fragments. So this is the beauty of fragments and modularization. So that is the power of fragments, and that is why fragments were introduced. So when you have a larger screen, you can you can put multiple fragments on one screen. But the same app, when you run on a smaller screen, a smaller device, what you do normally is you show only the first fragment. Then when do you show you the article fragment is when you click on this. So look at the font. When you click, you will load the second fragment. So how do you do that? I will show it we will show it in the next part. In the next lesson, we will show it. Same here, when I click here, I should change the article. But here I should when I click load, come a new, okay. So in the next lesson, we will show you how when you click here, how do you load something here into the right hand side? How do you load? So that means you are just dynamically changing. But here in the phone, what should happen is when I click on the button, it should load a new activity, right? And inside the second activity, so I will have to create a second activity for this. But for this, just one activity and two fragments is enough. But for this, in the same app, I will need two activities because this is the first activity, and when I click this, I will load the second activity, which displays the second fragment. So hope you are clear with this concept of fragments, and this was a simple example but gives a very clear understanding for you, right? Okay, let's see what's next. So we did a practical demonstration. You learn about creating fragments and adding a fragment. You can find the link to download the source code. We use these references and have a look at the next part to complete this topic. So in the next part, we'll show you how to change them dynamically, right? Also have a look at our other videos. We are very excited to see you in our next lesson. See you in our next lesson.